Hey, it's good to see ya. Thanks for joining me for a devotion. How have you been? Hanging in there? Yeah, me too. This pandemic has really been something, a doozy. Some days better than others, that's for sure. A long haul, and I'm afraid there's a long haul ahead of us too. It's really been a challenge in our lives in so many ways. Family, work, as communities. I think there's silver linings to this, though, too. Ways that we have worked harder to get closer, stay connected, and this is one of those ways, too. Well, you're joining me out on the front porch for devotions this morning. It's going to be people walking by, well, like a car driving by, trucks. You might hear a plane flying over, some animals. We're out in God's creation a little bit here. About a block away, they're doing some construction, so you may hear those sounds as well. So this devotion won't necessarily be a quiet one, but I think that's kind of how we get to devote ourselves to God, isn't it? In the midst of everything else, try to find a little spot of peace, a little way to connect with God, with ourselves, and with each other. So this morning I want to share a few things with you. Some poetry, a devotion, and some poems as well. And you know what? Some of the themes that we're working with here have to do with nature, have to do with connecting with one another, have to do with grace as well. And I think you'll hear those throughout these things. Now, one thing I want to share with you is a little bit about myself. Because at Emmanuel Lutheran Church over the last year or so, we've been learning as leaders about becoming more relational all the time, and that just entails reaching out a little more, sharing more of ourselves, being vulnerable with each other, really trying to make an effort to get to know one another. We're already a very relational congregation and ministries, but there's always room to grow, and we see an opportunity to grow there. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my hometown. Every now and then you get to hear a little bit of that from me anyway. But I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, a little farm town. And that town had a settlement of Icelanders in it. And Icelanders are interesting people. They're kind of the kind of Vikings that even the other Vikings couldn't stand. There's some people with some real wanderlust, and they wandered, from the Scandinavian countries into Iceland and couldn't stay put there either. They found their way to they found their way again to North America. And the people that I got to know were descendants of folks that settled in southwestern Minnesota and did what they always did. They were farmers. The Vikings were farmers, but a lot more than that. Of course, they were warriors too and conquerors, but these Icelanders are intellectuals as well. They were people of politics, people of literature, and my hometown's favorite son was a poet. He was an English professor at a university not too far away, and quite a striking figure. A bit taller than myself, quite a bit bigger than me, big red beard. His name was Bill Holm, and he passed away a number of years ago. But as the community's favorite son, we remember him well. We still read his poems, and there's a couple that I want to share with you that get at some things today. And in his poems, in this particular book, The Dead Get By With Everything by Bill Holm, you'll see some of the insight of the culture and the milieu that I grew up in, and also the humor. This first poem is Icelandic Graveyard in Lincoln County. A woman and I go to the immigrant graveyard on top of a bare and windy prairie hill. She's never been here, but she sees her own name on every headstone. Svanhildur, Svandis, Svanvit, the swan, who died sometimes an old lady, flocked by children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, petals grown up around a flower, Sometimes she died a child who couldn't talk, gone away without God's water on her head. Sometimes the name spelled right, sometimes not. It's good to die so many times, she says, to feel the death shuddering in your bones so often. When muscles practice this well, they move with a dancer's delicate grace. Big theme today is grace. Grace in the moment, grace in the day. Grace of God for all of us. We'll share one more poem here from Billy. I like this one. August in Waterton, Alberta. Above me, wind does its best to blow leaves off the aspen tree a month too soon. No use, wind. All you succeed in doing is making music. The noise of failure, growing beautiful. This is what I love about poetry and about my hometown. Seeing the facts, looking deeper into the truth, finding the beauty in all its awfulness and all of its wonder in everyday life. Our devotion for today comes from another book that I've shared with you before, Promises to Keep. This is kind of a collection of devotions from a bunch of different people, and this one today is entitled One Day at a Time. It is written by Frank Minierth and others who are involved. Comes from another publication called Worry-Free Living. Got a bit of Tai Chi going on here. Or chai tea, that's what it is. Not Tai Chi. I don't do that. But I will drink chai tea. One day at a time. He starts out with this quote from Matthew chapter 6, verse 34. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And he writes this. Persons who are anxious spend much of their time worrying about the future and playing what-if games. On the other hand, people who suffer depression are stalled in the past and waste much of their present playing if-only games. For these reasons, a suggestion to take one day at a time may seem impossible to follow. An average person gets up in the morning and may have 3 items to accomplish in the course of a day. He or she may complete 2 of the 3, doing one right and the second wrong. Still, they shrug it off as no big deal. The perfectionist gets up in the morning with a list of 20 tasks to complete. If they complete 19 of the 20, they are satisfied with themselves. They're guilt-ridden. They're dissatisfied with themselves. They're guilt-ridden because they feel they've fallen short. They don't stop to realize that their goals were unrealistic and had them programmed in for failure. If they had managed to accomplish all 20 items, they probably would have felt the objectives weren't challenging enough. The next day's list might include 21 tasks. In both cases, anxiety is the result, either from their failure to set tough goals or their failure to meet the goals set. In the hit Broadway play and film Annie, the little red-haired orphan heroine looks forward to tomorrow with the words, "You're only a day away." The idea is that everything will be better, brighter, more secure, less harried in the future. But constant anticipation breeds constant anxiety. The future never measures up to its expectations. What about today? Jesus advises us, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Live in the moment. Something very faithful about that, and good to be reminded about as well. Brings us into the present, keeps us connected with what God's doing here and now and what's happening all around us and within us as well. All right, I got some more favorites to share you. This is from a book, 365 Blessings and Life Affirmations to Celebrate Prayers for the Human Journey from Around the World. And I'm going to be reading from a section that's about grace. And these are poem kind of prayers. First one's from Ted Loder. Gentle me, Holy One, into an unclenched moment, a deep breath, a letting go of heavy experiences, of shriveling anxieties, of dead certainties that softened by silence, surrounded by the light, and open to the mystery, I may be found by wholeness, upheld by the unfathomable, entranced by the simple, and filled with the joy that is you. A lot of grace in that. This next one's from David White. Enough. These few words are enough. If not these words, this breath. If not this breath, this sitting here. This opening to the life we have refused again and again until now. Until now. This next one is from Denise Levertov. As swimmers dare to lie face to the sky, and water bears them, as hawks rest upon air, and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all-surrounding grace. Beautiful. This next one is by Annie Dillard. She's a favorite author of mine too. She writes not so much in poetry, but in poetic prose. Very thick and thin at the same time. Annie Dillard. At a certain point, you say to the woods, to the sea, to the mountains, to the world, now I am ready. I will stop and be wholly attentive. You empty yourself and wait, listening. After a time, you hear it. There is nothing there. There is nothing but those things only. Those created objects, discrete, growing or holding or swaying, being rained on or raining, held, flooding or ebbing, standing or spread. You feel the world's word as a tension, a hum, a single chorused note everywhere the same. This is it. This hum is the silence. The silence is all there is. It is the Alpha and the Omega. It is God's brooding over the face of the waters. It is the blended note of the 10,000 things, the whine of wings. You take a step in the right direction to pray to that silence, and even to address the prayer to world. Distinctions blur. Quit your tense. Pray without ceasing. That's really something, isn't it? Annie Dillard. This one comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. Our true home is in the present moment. To live in the present moment is a miracle. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment. To appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now. Peace is all around us, in the world and in nature and within us, in our bodies and our spirits. Once we learn to touch this peace, we will be healed and transformed. It is not a matter of faith. It is a matter of practice. Reminds me, I'll share you a little story. When I was on internship in seminary, I was on an ELCA internship. It wasn't through my seminary, but an ELCA program where they placed people in places that would not ordinarily be able to afford interns, but otherwise would be really great places to learn ministry. And many of those places were in very urban environments. And so I was in inner city, Syracuse, New York, and the office space where I had a little spot was not in the church, but it was down the street around the corner from the church. And I had a habit of practicing this. I would walk to church, to visit with people and check in with the staff and the pastors and that sort of thing. And on my way walking between the office building and the church, I would pray. I would pray the Lord's Prayer usually. And I remember very clearly one time I was praying it and just kind of feeling lonely, I guess, and had this, you get this feeling every now and then. You want to ask the question, God, are you there? You're not like feeling it in the moment. And just then, as I was, feeling that, thinking that, going through the Lord's Prayer, I prayed on earth as in heaven, and this garbage truck came by, and the stink of that thing just hit me. Oh my goodness, it hit me. And I don't know, the truck was just right there, so was I, the wind, everything came together, and I just got a face full of the stink, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's the smell of humanity. And at the same time, I had this thought that right there is God too, everywhere is God. God's there. And that came to me not so much in my faithfulness, but in my practice of prayer. God is there. How about that? And so as we're doing this devotion, we're surrounded by a lot of noise and distractions, and I'm quite all right with that. God is here, and peace is here too. Okay, our next one comes from Henry David Thoreau. There were times when I could not afford to sacrifice the bloom of the present moment to any work, whether of head or hands. Sometimes, in a summer morning, having taken my accustomed bath I sat in my sunny doorway from sunrise till noon, wrapped in a reverie. Amidst the pines and hickories and sumacs, in undisturbed solitude and stillness, while the birds sang around. I grew in those seasons, like corn in the night, and they were far better than any work of the hands would have been. They were not time subtracted from my life, but so much over and above my usual allowance. Just two more poems, prayers. And these will be our blessing and benediction for today. This first one is by Shin Sho. Does one really have to fret about enlightenment? No matter what road I travel, I am going home. That's so good. I'll read it one more time. It's short, so hang on. Does one really have to fret about enlightenment? No matter what road I travel, I'm going home. That reminds me of a little cemetery in western Minnesota where one of my relatives is buried, and it's in a nice little valley, beautiful hills all around, right on the western side of Minnesota, very near the South Dakota border. There's just some beautiful geography there, and in this little valley that's as green as can be in the summertime and white with snow in the winter, there's this headstone of my relative, and has the name and the dates, and on the bottom of it, it says, "Gone home." This last one is by James Broughton, and this is our sending. This is it, and I am it, and you are it, and so is that, and he is it, and she is it, and it is it, and that is that. Oh, it is this, and it is thus, and it is them, and it is us, and it is now, and here it is, and here we are. So this is it. Thanks for sharing this time with me. Go in peace. Serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. I'll catch you later.